Childe slash Tartaglia, my Genshin Impact main. He was the second character that I have ever pulled in Genshin, and I honestly wasn't that impressed by him. But after playing him for a short while, I started to really enjoy how he felt and all the different combinations I could play him in. So I am a big Tartaglia fan and a main, and today I am going to tell you why I think he is one of the best characters in Genshin Impact and why I enjoy him so much and what I think MiHoYo did really well with his design. So let's go. So first of all, let's talk about how Childe works and why it is so fun. So some characters in Genshin Impact like Eula, which I also do enjoy, are very dependent of their elemental burst to work. But what Tartaglia has going for him is that his elemental burst is just a part of his kit, but he is kind of always on. His elemental skill is his true power, and that makes it that you can use your elemental burst to like finish off a combo. So you can slap your elemental skill, do a lot of AoE damage and just finish your combo off with that elemental burst. And that feels really satisfying to play. So number one, I really like it that his elemental skill is what makes his kit and this elemental burst just adds on it, instead of the elemental burst being the kit and the skill just being a small extra. Number two, his flexibility. So when I was starting to play Genshin, the first 5-star that I ever pulled was Chi-Chi, and right after that the Raiden Shogun. Now the Raiden Shogun actually pairs quite well with Tartaglia, and during the early game I popped my Raiden Shogun E and I went to town on some enemies with my Tartaglia's water blades, and the result was a big electro-charged explosion that just gives you a lot of AoE potential. Now this is a great baseline for starting some Tartaglia teams. He has so many teams that he can easily fit in, and he does really well in, like the electro-charged teams, and because he can be fit in such a diverse roster, I think that's a great plus for character design. So I think any character that can work well together with many different supports and many different teams is a massive plus on my enjoyment scale. The third reason is his aesthetic and story. After playing the Liyue story, I was already a big fan of how the character was, as he was a little bit insane, and I really liked his endless thirst for combat, because just like him, I am also endlessly thirsting for some Genshin endgame to absolutely destroy. So I really like this lore. Next to that, I think he does look really cool in game, and the way that he uses both his daggers, a pole arm and his bow, even though the bow is a little bit redundant, the elemental burst is actually used quite often, and also you get 2 elemental burst animations for the price of 1. Gave him a big upgrade in my book of why I would main such a character. Next to that, when you are in combat, it also looks incredibly flashy. If you are grouping down a big group with an AoE with Tartaglia, you just do some insane hydro splashes, and it can cause for some of the best visual effects that there are on Genshin Impact, and there's even satisfying Tartaglia explosion compilations on YouTube, just because of how nice it looks when he just blows up a pack with his supports. Also, when you are done with your elemental skill and you flick back your bow, it has to be one of the most satisfying animations in Genshin Impact. And for my last reason, it is how effective he is in any form of content with reasonably low investment. He has only one job. He needs to apply hydro to the enemies and deal some reasonable AoE damage. And for the rest of your damage you have a Xiangling. You only need a reasonable Heart of Depths artifact set on him, and you don't even really need constellations to make him work. He also synergizes really well with Kazuha, and I absolutely love using Kazuha as well, so I really like using them both in the same team. He can clear Abyss 12 quite successfully for me, being at C0 but having the Polar Star. The sheer power of this man at C0 together with a team that works really well for him, which in my case is either Tartaglia International or Nahida Hyperbloom, makes me never not want to use him in Abyss. There's never an Abyss floor where I'm like, oh, I can't use Tartaglia, because I can either use Dendro or I can use a Pyro comp, and if those are not available, I'll have an Electro comp to use. And even with a level 70 Cookie Shinobu, these comps work amazingly well, and they still clear Abyss 12 in a jiffy. So all in all, he is always effective and he doesn't really need constellations, which I think is quite nice. So to conclude, I became a Tartaglia main because he plays fast and I absolutely love pressing buttons. Next to that, his lore is really cool And I think he's going to even get some more character development in the future, and maybe a SNES 9 skin, please please please. He has so many teams he can work in, and as an absolute Genshin noob, he helped me through the early game, because he worked so well with someone like Xiangling and someone like Beidou, who I used a lot into the early game. He also transitioned amazing into the late game, now carrying me through Abyss 12 every single week, and all in all, I think his story is cool. All of his fans in the Tartaglia main subreddit and elsewhere are absolute chats and are really nice. And thus, all in all, he's a great character to main, and I think I will be maining him for the rest of my Genshin Impact days.